The time is just gone 8:36 p.m. as we continue, and the final part of this evening's program, we'll be talking with Mahmoud Shakshak out of Palestine, and he is with an organization called Kuffiya. He is a Palestinian activist, and as we unpack some of the major events in 2021, we know a lot has happened in Palestine, and to take the discussion further, we now go across to be joined by Mahmoud Shakshak. Brother Mahmoud, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome. We thank you. We say Jazakallah khairan to you for your time.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for this opportunity, honestly.
Yes, now unpacking the major events, and we know year after year, obviously the question of Palestine and the challenges in Palestine just grow, and we see just new developments taking place, and there've been quite a few this year. There've been quite a few, and we know the expansion on a settlement still continue, and the Israeli occupation. So let's just start begin. Let's start talking with the expansion in settlements by Israel. We've seen there has been a change of leadership in Palestine as well, where we've seen now Benjamin Netanyahu no longer in, so with Bennett in as well. So, all of this is extremely significant and very relevant, Brother Mahmoud.
Yes, actually, this year has been one of the craziest years in the Palestinian fight against the Israeli occupation, and with so many changes on both the Palestinian side and the Israeli occupation side, it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on if you're not living in the region and affected by the region. As you said, Naftali Bennett is now in charge of the Israeli government, and he's shown no mercy when it comes to Palestinians. And with the expansion of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank, we're sitting in Palestine watching the world actually watching us being violated, because as you know, under the international law, the West Bank, the Israeli occupation is not allowed to go into the West Bank and the east side of Jerusalem. And they've been kicking people out from their houses, as you probably heard in Sheikh Jarrah and Salwan neighborhood and other neighborhoods in Jerusalem, and they call it eviction, and they're playing with words, and it's just so hard to stand by and keep watching.
Yes. Now, I'm glad you mentioned Sheikh Jarrah and Salwan as well, because these have been major talking points. There's been major developments in 2021, and it's also woken up to the world to the ugly face of these expansions and this home grab and land grab that has been taking on place for the last 70 years, Brother Mahmoud.
Yeah, it's been one of the, as I said before, it's been one of the craziest years. We have people who kept speaking up about their homes being stolen and under theft by Israeli settlers, like Mona al-Kurd and Mohammed al-Kurd, and they've been actually some role models to me. And I started acting on my activism work when all that stuff happened in Jerusalem. I started actually getting really deep into the political side of Palestine. Um, Sheikh Jarrah is under international law a Palestinian neighborhood, and the papers, the official papers of ownership, are actually in Jordan, the Kingdom of Jordan. And despite that, and despite it being under international law, the Israeli occupation, kept kicking people out. And if it wasn't for a few people who actually kept, speaking up for Sheikh Jarrah and for the neighborhoods in Jerusalem, it would have gone just like any other neighborhood, stolen under awful quietness and silence, before the world.
Yes. Now, another major development in the major talking point was the attack on Gaza. Now, we've seen We've seen the result of the attack on Gaza, where for the very first time this year in 2021, where we've seen huge protest action that we've never seen before, right across the entire world. Every major city, the visuals that we've seen, thousands and thousands of people from all walks of life coming out in support of the people of Palestine. Now, that was obviously very, very encouraging to note, Brother Mahmoud.
It was. I was in Gaza during the attack on Gaza, and the solidarity that I saw and felt, it was what made us keep pushing through. I kept going on live streams during the attack, which was a direct threat to my life in Gaza, with Israeli drones and air fighters roaming around the sky of Gaza. Many activists would keep going on live streams, talking about what's going on, record what's going on, and we sensed solidarity, and it was heartwarming. In during our darkest moments, where lots of people in Gaza lost their lives, lost a brother, a sister, a cousin, a friend, and it was just horrible. And it was actually nice to see the world setting up for a change for Gaza across the world. There were protests in every major city, like you said, in Istanbul, in the major cities of the United States, New York, and in the state of California and other states, and many other countries in Europe and Africa and Asia. And to see that the world can actually see what's going on in Gaza and in Palestine, it just made us stronger, and it made us have more patience, and it literally made us stronger.
No,
Um,
certainly, and one must obviously admire the people of Palestine, not only for their patience, but for their resolve in standing up to this brutal occupation. And when we are talking about Gaza, we're talking about the largest open air prison in the world. And we know for a very, very long time that one of the stated aims of the brutal Israeli government and their army has been the siege on Gaza and to maintain this stranglehold that they have on Gaza from everywhere, from each and every part around Gaza.
yes, sir. I left Gaza uh, about a month and a half ago. And the reason I left is my mom was in critical need for a surgery that does not exist in Gaza because of the blockade and siege. A month after I left, I saw the news of the Israeli occupation's many newsletters celebrating the full siege around Gaza, meaning that there is an actual siege, an actual border surrounding the entire Gaza Strip, and it is now actually and literally the biggest open air prison in the world, where 2 million people are trapped in, and they cannot leave unless they have a permission from multiple governments of multiple countries. The Israeli occupation, uh, Egypt, Jordan, and I can go on for hours about my trip through the Egyptian border, where we had to drive through the Sinai Desert for hours. We drove for like 12 hours, and I had my mom who was sick, and I had my dad and my little sister with me, and we had luggages, and it was an awful trip, leaving Gaza to Egypt. And with all of that happening, if the Israeli occupation keeps denying many goods to enter Gaza, they also make it so much harder for people to go out in case they need those goods. As I said before, we left for Turkey because my mom was in a critical condition, and she needed urgent surgery in Turkey. And if we hadn't left on time, God knows what could have happened. And my mom left a year ago, through the Egypt border, and the same story. She had to sleep along with my brother in the Sinai Desert for days, just crossing what could be a 6 hour drive. Took them 3 days. So the things that the Israeli occupation is doing to people living in Gaza, who are under blockade, is just, you cannot, you read that in fiction books. It's just so humiliating and inhumane, honestly.
Yes, and obviously the Egyptian government has not made it any easier on the people of Gaza with the Rafah crossing, with the border, and the actions that the Egyptian government has been taking. And not only the Egyptian government, what we've also seen in 2021 is we've seen the cementing of the relationship with the likes of the UAE. We know Saudi Arabia hasn't come out openly, but there is some sort of relationship with Israel. Then we know what has happened with Morocco, with Sudan. Now, these obviously relationships have been building for quite a time, which have been a kick in the teeth, which have been a slap in the face of the people of Palestine, particularly the UAE, where we've even heard recently talking about granting citizenship to Israeli citizens in the UAE. Now, this is a level that some of these countries have taken it to, and that has not helped the Palestinian cause at all.
Honestly, when I first read the news, and I'm speaking personally, of the UAE granting citizenships to Israeli settlers, I was like, you're making it way too easy for them, because when they came to Palestine first, they had to go undercover, they had to buy lands, in names of Palestinians, not, Zionists or Jewish. And it's just so ridiculous what's going on, because most of the UAE citizens are Muslims, and I don't know if there has been any changes in Islam recently, God forbid, but Al-Aqsa Mosque is one of the holiest sites in the religion of Islam. And just to trade that with nothing but humiliation and submission, I don't know. I thought Muslims and Arabs of the UAE would be much better than that. Of course, we're not generalizing. Of course, there are some good people there who still have some dignity, but it's just ridiculous. And same goes for Saudi Arabia. The recent news that they could normalize relations with the Israeli occupation if it agrees to give us a Palestinian state. As long as the Israeli occupation exists, we cannot have a Palestinian state, because that's the definition of Zionism. So it doesn't go along with each other.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned Al Aqsa because obviously that is central to this entire struggle as well. And when one looks at the sacrifices that the Palestinians have made, with honor, with dignity, in terms of protecting Al Aqsa, protecting its honor and its dignity. And we know even throughout 2021, so much has happened as far as Al Aqsa is concerned. The killings that have taken place, the storming by the Israeli Defense Force. Now, all of that has been taking place as it has been taken year after year. But again, the Palestinians, it is a Muslim, Al Aqsa is definitely a Muslim issue. The Palestinian has taken on this huge responsibility on behalf of an entire Muslim ummah right across the entire world to protect the honor and dignity. And it is said that countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like the UAE, Sudan, Morocco, don't recognize that fact and don't acknowledge this huge sacrifice that the Palestinians are making on behalf of 1.6 billion Muslims right across the world.
Exactly. And uh, honestly, sir, do you know why did an attack on Lasha was launched in May 2021? It's because there was attacks on Muslims in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Palestinians, the Palestinian resistance movements in Gaza warned the Israeli occupation, telling them that if you keep attacking Muslims while they're doing their prayer in Al-Aqsa Mosque, you know, bad things are going to happen. So stop. And they didn't stop, and that's why the Palestinians started launching those rockets on Palestinians' lands, which are under Israeli occupation's control. So if yani, whenever Israeli sources or news be like, oh, Palestinian resistance movements in Gaza started the war, they did not. Okay, the Israeli occupation forces attacking Muslims during the Mubarak Shahr of Ramadan, and before that, they were attacking Muslims in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and that's why it escalated and it went to Gaza, where Gaza started defending Al-Aqsa Mosque, and most Arab leaders were like, "Oh well, just another war in Gaza."
Yes, but also I think one thing that has been proven is even the Israel knows that the Palestinians will not take this issue lying down. They will not be subjugated by being bombed into the Stone Age, and this was proven by Hamas. This was proven by Izzeddin Qassam as well, in terms of the rockets that were actually fired into Israel, and that obviously had given them a wake-up call that you are playing with fire, and the Palestinians will not sit back and just be humiliated in the way that you are humiliating them.
Exactly. With all due respect, people in Gaza don't really have a lot to lose, meaning that they're already under blockade and siege. They already are living. They're barely living under horrible conditions. Barely any water to drink. Barely any electricity. An hour or two, maybe 5 hours every day of electricity, which is when things are generous. No safety, no clean beaches, no everything. And if you want to leave that place, you will have to pay a fortune to be able to leave that prison. And then they wonder, like, why don't they just agree to settle down? It's because we don't really have anything to lose. And the only thing that we have to lose is Palestine. And that's the only thing you're trying to steal. So they just picked the wrong people to steal from, because that's the only thing that we care about as Palestinians, regardless of our diverse religion of Muslims and Christians, or of our colors or backgrounds or tribe or anything. It's we all align under one thing, which is Palestine, which is why I chose the name of the team that I work for, Kuffiya, which represents Palestine and the Palestinian farmer. You know?
Mm. Yes, I'm just seeing a message on the screen. It says, "So proud of you, Mahmoud. Thank you for giving a voice to all those who can't speak up." So, Alhamdulillah, we thank you for that. But we've got obviously about 5 or 6 minutes, and just to focus, obviously, we've looked at some of the major talking points in 2021 out of Palestine. But as has been the case for well over 70 years, the struggle will still continue until Palestine is free, until Palestine is liberated. And just, we here in South Africa, we've got a number of Palestine solidarity organizations that keep on putting pressure as well through government, through civil society. And we see that right across the entire world. And I'm sure that at this point in time, the people of Palestine very appreciative of all these efforts that are taking place right across the entire world to continue putting pressure on the Israeli apartheid regime.
Sure thing. It's we've been saying that for quite a while. The type of work that I do at the moment is just um, activism work, which is putting pressure on either the Israeli occupation's government or other governments, which could put pressure on the occupation's government. Words do count, and they have weight. And if chosen right and used correctly, they could come with huge effects. So I really, really, honestly, and I happen to say that during the war on Gaza, when I was in Gaza, use your words, use your voice, use your accounts, speak up about what's going on in Palestine, about what's going on in Al Aqsa Mosque. If you're Muslim, uh, and honestly, if you're human at all, just speak about what's going on in Palestine. Um, and one of the biggest issues that I would like to mention is the Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons, which they're going through hell a million times every day, and not many people know about them. Actually, not all Palestinians know about them because they're being silenced. They're being kept away from Palestinian sources. And we're actually signing a petition, which I will share on my Facebook later tonight, a petition to demand protection for Palestinians in Israeli prisons because they're being beaten, tortured, and they're being deprived from water and food. And it's all just, it's like I feel like every action the Israeli occupation is taking is literally literally against the international law. They're holding a manual of the international law rules, and they're like, oh, let's break this one and every single one till we're done with them. And I don't see the international law taking any actual actions against that.
Well, Mahmoud, I must say it's been an absolute pleasure linking up with you and obviously catching up, looking at some of the major developments and talking points for 2021 in Palestine. And we pray for you, make dua for you, that you have the strength, you have the ability to continue with the wonderful work that you are doing at Kuffiya as well, all the activism work. And I've seen some of the comments come through, people very appreciative of the fact as well. I know it's a struggle, it's a huge sacrifice, but at the end of the day, it is for the sake of the people of Palestine, for the sake of
Absolutely.
humanity at large. And, we that are so far removed from Palestine, but our hearts are with you, our prayers are with you. And in any way whatsoever, where we can obviously send out the message, send a very, very profound message, a strong message as far as Palestine is concerned, the lobbying that takes place, and including our governments and civil society, so that at the end of the day, those voices are loud and clear for the freedom and the liberation of the people of Palestine, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Um,
assalamu alaikum. That was Mahmoud Shakshak joining us, and he is an activist with an organization called Kuffiya. And again, looking at 2021, it's been an extremely difficult year. It's been a very, very tough year for the people of Palestine. And it's not only the areas that we have been talking about, we can still talk about countries like China. We're looking at the plight of the Uyghur Muslims. There are many other troubled spots around the world. We're looking at Africa, closer to home, Somalia. We see what is taking place out in Ethiopia, and also some of the other areas around the world. India, looking at within certain countries, when we look at the plight of Muslims in India, the BJP, the ruthless BJP government, and also let us not forget the challenges that we are faced with in our very own Muslim countries. And last week we spoke about it. We spoke about Saudi Arabia as well, and we spoke about the Tabligh Jamaat being banned. And so these are challenges that we have from within. So when we're talking about Islamophobia, yes, we've got Islamophobia coming out from external sources, but also Islamophobia from within. And the ruthlessness, the brutality of some of these governments, people that are languishing in prison. We know about prominent people, the case of Afia Siddiqui that we spoke about not very long ago. 18 years it has been since she's been incarcerated in Castle, and there are many other prisoners right across the entire world. So it hasn't been an easy year. It's been an extremely difficult year. Yes, we have been focused a lot on the pandemic, on COVID-19, but let us still remember on humanitarian grounds, let us focus on oppression, and let us continue fighting for the cause of justice for people that are being oppressed right across the entire world. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. So from myself and the rest of the team, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi